MMOs. God, I love MMOs. There's something about the environment of an MMO that's always been so appealing to me. There's a type of immersion that comes with being in a game with hundreds or even thousands of other players of different skill levels all sharing in the experience of that game's world that is just hard to find in any other type of game. One of the really cool things about the genre is just how many different types of MMOs there are. Whether you like combat and raids with big groups, or you simply like to wander around alone and cut down trees, or literally anything in between, there really is something for everybody here. With there being so many popular MMOs and so many different kinds, paired with the massive scale of most of them, it can be one of the more intimidating genres for newer players to get into. It's also possible that even seasoned MMO players have just never found the time to check out some they've been interested in. I know that's certainly the case for me, which is why I've been so excited about making this video. There have been so many MMOs on my list for years that I've wanted to play, but never have until today. I played 20 MMOs for 2 hours each to find the best ones. Let me say a couple of things before we get started, and for those of you actually watching this part of the video. First, thank you again for all the support lately. The channel's still growing like crazy, and that's just so cool. So huge shout out to everybody that is subscribing and showing up for the videos. I really appreciate it. Second, and this is my usual disclaimer, but I'm going to invite you to participate in it this time. I know that MMOs are high on the list of genres that need far more than 2 hours to have a full idea about what a game has to offer. As always though, I'm not here to review these games in full, but rather to see what kind of first impressions the game makes on me. How does it feel to play? What's the story like? How is the combat? What types of systems is it showing me? What are the overall vibes? And does it make me want to keep playing? I give this disclaimer in literally every one of my videos, but there are always a few people that skip the intro and then leave the same comment whining about how 2 hours isn't enough to review a game. So if you see anyone leaving that comment on this video, go ahead and let them know how goofy they look. It's actually kind of ironic how the same people that leave comments telling me I haven't played enough of a game to fully review it don't actually watch enough of my video to review it, but you know, welcome to the internet, I guess. One last thing, there's no World of Warcraft in this video because I've never really played it, and I want to make a whole video about my first time playing it sometime later this year. I will also get comments complaining about WoW not being in the video, so feel free to let them have it as well. All that being said, folks, let's get to the games. We'll kick things off with Bitcraft Online. They actually reached out to me to sponsor a video, and I said sure, we can do a 60 to 90 second integration where I'll tell my audience about the game and highlight the things about the game you think are important for them to know, yada yada yada. You've seen ads in YouTube videos, you know how it goes. They said, yeah, that's all well and good, but we actually want to be one of the games you review in your video. I told them we could certainly do that, but the game will be getting the same exact review it would get if they weren't paying me, to which they said, bring it on, bitch! Okay, they didn't actually call me a bitch, they've actually been very professional and nice to work with, but you get what I'm saying. They have confidence in their game, and if nothing else, you have to respect it. So to be very clear, if I haven't been already, this portion of the video is sponsored by, but in no way influenced by, Bitcraft Online. I actually played this for about 14 hours back when it first came out in June of 2025, and I really enjoyed it then, but apparently it's been updated quite a bit since release. I'll start with the style and aesthetic. I really like it. It seems to have some pretty heavy Studio Ghibli inspiration, particularly in the character design, and that's almost always a good thing. There are a lot of aspects of the gameplay to get into here, and I reckon we'll start with the professions as that's sort of what you'll be getting into initially. There are a lot of different professions here, and they all have quite a few layers to their skills and production chains. As you go through the process of making yourself some armor early on, you'll start to see what I'm talking about. For leather armor, you'll have to hunt, take your kills to a station to scan and prepare everything to be processed, cut and tan your leather, and then craft your different armor pieces, which will generally also require some other chain of processing as well. This is where you'll really start to understand the importance of the economy and start figuring out where you want to try to plug yourself in. It'll be much more efficient to specialize in something and purchase other materials than it will be to try to specialize in everything, because again, the game is a pretty slow-paced grind in those ways. It would also be a good idea if you're playing with a friend or two to specialize in things that complement one another. I actually have a hard time deciding what profession to lock into because I enjoy everything I've done so far, and it's really fun seeing just how much depth there is to each one as you dig in and make a little progress. The exploration is fun, and the map is insanely big. Another really cool thing here is that in addition to the town you see early on and other things already on the map, you'll start seeing player-built towns. You can actually acquire a deed to found your own town and start developing if you want, and other players will be able to visit it. You'll see player towns of all levels and sizes, and it's just a really cool thing to see civilization sort of growing and expanding the longer you play, and the different rates at which it happens. This is another element where your profession is important. You could search for towns that need someone of your profession to slot into their production, and different resources and items have different values in different regions. So it all just comes together in a really cool way where you get to feel the importance importance of what you're doing. Combat gets more interesting as you level up and start unlocking new skills and equipping better gear, and there are also boss fights. This is a very beginner-oriented one here with this giant crab, and it gives you a glimpse of things to come later. There are sailing mechanics with the opportunity to level up and grow into bigger boats as you progress there, and this would be a pretty fun thing to specialize in my opinion. One of the things you can do right away once you begin sailing is venture out and find these little lost shipments to loot. You can take them back to a sailing workstation to unpack them and find a wide variety of things, whether they be valuables to sell to Svim, materials to upgrade and build better boats, or tons of other stuff. All of the familiar MMO things are here, like mounts, pets, cosmetics, etc., with the added element of the town and home building with all the customization that comes with that. They've also taken the prospecting skill and attached a holiday event to it where you can hunt down these gift boxes that will give you holiday-themed crafting materials for cosmetics for your house and town. This was pretty cool. You love to see active developers doing things that indicate they love their game and appreciate their players. There's also a big New Year's event on January 9th where they will actually be in the game connecting with players, dropping rewards, and doing a bunch of other stuff. This is footage from when they did the same thing for Halloween, so they regularly go big for holidays. It's pretty cool. I think this is a great MMO for players of any level of experience. It's easy enough to follow as a new player, and there's plenty of depth here for anyone that's been playing MMOs for a while, and a ton to grow into. It also won the Player's Choice Indie MMO of 2025 award, as well as the massively OP Best MMO Crafting award, and they did not tell me to tell you that. I just think it's cool and worth mentioning. Shout out again to Bitcraft Online for sponsoring this portion of the video and for being confident enough in their game to not try and influence me in any way. If you decide you want to check out Bitcraft Online, I'll have a link in the description and the pinned comment. Up next is Heartwood Online, and apparently I've already played this one. This game is very different than what the aesthetic might lead you to believe. It looks like it's kind of cute. It's called Heartwood Online. It's all got pretty nice vibes initially, and then you'll get your first quest, which is to murder rabbits, and yes, they do squeak when you kill them. Then you will eventually work up to bigger rabbits, then deer, then bigger deer, and so on. Here I thought I'd chop trees for a while, but a bird attacked me for trying to destroy its home and I had to kill it. I'm not vibing with any of this at all. The thing about this game is that it's very clear that the whole point of this is to grind. I know a lot of MMOs are grindy, but here it really just feels like the grind is literally the whole point. It's early access, so there's still a lot to be done, and I also only played the first 2 hours, but the game doesn't really even seem to be leading you toward anything right now. I'm not saying that a grind is a bad thing. I love a good grind. This definitely feels like a game I could get into. However, here's my big issue with how this grind is set up. There are skill levels in addition to your character level. Your stats and what gear you can equip seem to be tied to your character level. Doing things that level up your skills do not also give your character XP, so you have to do combat to get those levels. It sort of feels like the idea is to make you specialize in something, but it seems like you will always have to specialize in combat in addition to whatever skill you choose, because otherwise you won't be able to wear the gear that makes you better at the job. I never even got to equip this lumberjack hat I found. It's also kind of annoying that I kept getting rewards for quests that I couldn't equip. I kept getting items that I needed one more level to wear, and the levels come pretty slow. I found my rhythm after level 8 when I was able to equip a better bow, and found a good spot where I could aggro 3 to 6 deer at a time, swipe them with one of my abilities, and then clean them up, but I still only barely hit level 9. Maybe if I literally did nothing else for the entire 2 hours, I could have hit level 10, but I spent a little time mining and chopping trees and trying to explore a little bit as well. The game is just very bare bones right now, but I can see the potential in it. It's also a really nice mindless little grind game if you're looking for something that lets you feel like you're making some progress without requiring a ton of your attention. Heartwood Online definitely has potential, but there are other games in this video that offer the same thing in a much more complete way, so I'm going to say I don't really recommend it right now. Perhaps in the future we can revisit. Moving along, we have DC Universe Online, and this one was pretty cool. It has solid cinematics, and the character creator was pretty fun. There is a wide variety of the type of superhero or villain you can create, and I really think most people should be able to make something pretty close to what they want to play. I think there's more to unlock as you play, as well as stuff available for purchase that even further expands the possibilities. I just threw together a quick version of Gigpool and tried a bit of a random array of abilities just to see how it all felt. There are plenty of different play styles, and it also alluded to being able to change my role at one point by switching to a healer if I was in a team. So it seems not only can you build around however you want your character to play, but also lean into certain roles if you're trying to group up for higher level raids and stuff. The story's fine, perhaps a little more interesting than normal because it's DC, so if you're a fan of stuff like this, a lot more of it will be familiar. You'll see tons of faces you recognize, and the overarching story is cool. The gameplay's fine enough. It definitely feels a bit dated, but it's still fun. You really get to feel the effects of the decisions you made building your character, and there are a lot of abilities and combos to level into as you progress. You also sort of pick a main movement ability. The 3 that are available initially are Flight, Acrobatics, and Super Speed. I went with Super Speed. It initially didn't feel very fast. I was barely faster than the traffic, but as you level up, I think you can make the ability stronger. At level 9, for example, I unlocked a sort of second phase to my Super Speed, and it was noticeably faster. You also have skills specifically tied to your movement ability, which is really dope to play around with. There were plenty of people online while I was playing, so it seems fairly active. There was a a lot of talk in the game chat about the game being dead, but you also have to remember we're talking about MMO communities here, so I'd take everything they say with several grains of salt. You get to choose a mentor when creating your character. The options you're given are based on whether you go hero or villain, and you'll start in whichever area is relative to the mentor you choose. I chose Superman partially because I wasn't entirely sure what the overall impact of this would be, and I was more interested in having superpowers than using tech. I started in Metropolis, and most of my initial quests were based there, but toward the end of my 2 hours, I was able to travel a bit more, and I did go check out Gotham. It was pretty cool looking. Everything was also decorated for the holidays, so it seems they stay on top of things like that and have events going on throughout the year and stuff. This game was fine overall. I don't really have a ton of complaints. It was fun enough. If you're a big DC fan, I think there's plenty of fan service here, and I think they did a pretty good job with everything. I don't particularly have any desire to keep playing it. I played City of Heroes years and years ago and remember loving that one, but last I heard it was shut down, so this might just be your best bet if you're looking for a superhero MMO. It's free, so there's no risk to check it out. If you're interested, give DC Universe Online a try. Who knows, you might love it. Next is Wizard 101, and this one's made for kids. And like, duh, obviously. But I still decided to check it out because you never know. Sometimes a game will surprise you. It's not a bad game. It just didn't have anything going on that really engaged me. I thought the character creation was cool. You go through this quick little questionnaire to find out what kind of wizard the game thinks you are. It's sort of like Sorting Hat from Harry Potter vibes. You can either accept what you get or retake it if you don't like it. My entire experience was all very basic, simple versions of typical MMO stuff. Just a lot of back and forth questing and learning how to navigate the world and stuff. I'll say, the arrow that points you toward your quest marker is terrible. Possibly the worst I've ever experienced. It was so hard to follow that I just started opening my map and memorizing the route because I don't know what the hell this arrow was doing most of the time. The combat's kind of cool. I haven't played many MMOs with turn-based combat, but this was pretty dope. It's card-based, so you'll build your deck around what you want to be able to do. If you want to avoid combat, you stay on the sidewalks and only go into the street when you want to fight. Kind of like where I grew up, except there were no sidewalks on my street. When a battle starts, you'll have this big circle of little circles, and if there are open circles, other players can join in. I joined in several fights while I was running around. It's honestly a pretty neat system. There seems to be some skilling, crafting, property to own, your own place to decorate, etc. Again, lots of stuff you're familiar with if you play MMOs, just a little easier to grasp. Wizard 101 is fine, but it's not for me. Up next is Fantasy Online 2, and I came into this one with pretty high hopes based on the way it looked. I don't think it quite lived up to what I was hoping for, but it wasn't bad. It's also early access, so keep that in mind. It sort of feels very bare bones at the moment. It's a click-to-move game, and you just wander around the map clicking NPCs to get quests, which pretty much exclusively consist of killing things, which I reckon is fairly standard. It's pretty slow-paced, to the extent that it could almost be a background game. Enemies never go hostile until you engage them, and it will take a bit to kill stuff. The quests are fine initially, but eventually they graduate from just killing things to collecting things from what you killed. This kinda sucks because sometimes the drop rate's pretty low. So like this crab jelly quest took me 30 minutes to complete because the drop rate felt like it was about 1 in 4. Again, not a big deal. There's no time limit or real reason to be in a hurry. I'm just trying to make sure you understand that this is a very slow-paced game, at least in the early stages. There is a real money shop that I didn't bother exploring much, but I did notice this $120 a month subscription, which is a little bit fucking insane for a game that seems to have so little going on right now. No subtlety there at all. I made it to level 12 and never unlocked any new skills or anything. I was able to purchase and equip some stronger gear at level 12, which did speed up my killing a bit, but it's still pretty slow. If this game was free, I'd probably say it's at least worth a look if you like the aesthetic and you're looking for something a little slower paced that you only have to halfway pay attention to while doing other things, but it's not free. So I'm gonna say my recommendation is that you hold off on this one for a bit. It came out in 2025 and is in early access, so it's probably worth giving this one a bit of time to see how it continues to develop, what kind of feedback we see on how pay to win it is for those of you concerned about that, and just how the overall health of the game is after some time. Perhaps it's worth putting on the wish list and checking in on occasionally. Fantasy Online 2 could absolutely end up being a really good game, but I think it's just hard to say right now. There are much better games in this list and much safer games to spend your money on than this one right now, so I'm gonna say I don't recommend it at the moment. Up next is Albion Online, and this is definitely one of my favorites. I think this game is so good. It's very approachable for new players and people new to MMOs as a whole, but also has enough content and difficult enough content to keep even the most seasoned MMO players engaged. It's got a great tutorial that familiarizes you with a variety of gameplay loops available to you and letting you figure out which path you want to start down. I think it does a great job of guiding you by giving you options to choose from that have pretty clear outcomes. Like here toward the end of the tutorial, you sort of choose which aspect of gameplay you think you're most interested in, and it will give you an applicable quest line to follow with different rewards to aid you in progress. It's really well thought out, and I think they just nailed this whole tutorial phase of the game. Depending on what you choose to do, it's going to be a pretty repetitive gameplay loop. You can choose to focus on combat and dungeons and PvP, or choose from a wide variety of gathering and crafting skills to find your place in the production chain in the world. I tend to prefer gathering, but there are so many different things you can do. My original character is a decently high-level lumberjack, and on this new one I just focused on mining ore and smelting it into ingots to sell on the marketplace, which brings me to the economy. Albion Online has a purely player-driven economy, which means nothing exists if players don't make it. Every tool, every piece of armor, every resource is a product of player activity. You could even specialize in breeding mounts if you wanted to. As you get stronger and begin to scale up, pretty much no matter what your specialty is, you will eventually have to start venturing into more dangerous zones to get higher tier resources. The early game zones are relatively safe, as you'll only occasionally run into random enemies. As you progress through the different zones, you'll have to start worrying a little bit more about other players, as some people's specialty is killing gatherers and stealing everything they've gathered. This is also where being in a guild will come in. Some guilds will have guards tag along with their gatherers to protect them. It's all really cool and interesting as it develops. The map is huge, the game is very active, there are so many different ways to play, and while there is a big cash shop with lots of things to purchase, you can very much thrive in this game free to play. You can also play across multiple devices very seamlessly, which can be very convenient. I used to play for a bit in bed every night on my phone. There really isn't anything I don't like about this game, and if you're an MMO player who hasn't played it yet, or someone who is new to MMOs and looking for a good one to try, I think Albion Online is a must play. Next is Ravendawn. It's another free to play MMO that I really like a lot. I think they're doing so many cool things in this game. It has so much content and offers so many different ways to play, I think you'd be hard pressed to not enjoy yourself, but it does have a couple of issues we'll talk about. It's got a bit of an old school look and feel to it, but the systems are all very modern and have a lot of depth to them. There are several different classes to choose from when you make your character, and at certain points as you progress, you'll be able to choose another class to add to your build, and depending on which one you choose, sort of create an entirely new class with the combination. It's a really cool system, and just one example of the freedom you have as a player to sort of craft the experience you're looking for. I actually enjoy the combat here. It's fairly simple in the early stages, but engaging enough to be fun for me. My only gripe about it is that if you don't target an enemy, you can't hit them, and you won't auto-target anything that hits you or the next enemy once you've killed something, so you have to keep hitting tab or right-clicking who you want to target. Other than that, I like everything about the combat, and there are a lot of really cool abilities for any given build that you can really see the potential in for the later game. Some skills are clearly designed for being in a group and will really give you the opportunity to settle into your role within a group. There are also tons of different professions, all with their own intricacies and skills to level up, some of which complement others, and if you're willing to do it, you can sort of become someone of notoriety in your profession. If you wanted to try to be the best blacksmith in the land, it's something you could actually work toward, to the point that people would seek you out and the things you build specifically. It's a pretty cool system. There's also a reputation system of sorts, not only for how you treat other players, but also how you interact with NPCs, and this will have an impact on your game the longer you play. The voices in the game all seem to be AI, and I will just never understand why devs make that decision. In almost all cases in a video game, at least in my opinion, no voice acting at all seems like a better option than AI voices. Again, I'll just never get that. The tutorial's okay. Sometimes it will sort of lock up or just be really unclear about what it wants. The part where it teaches you about farming, for example, was an issue on both of my characters. I'm not sure what the intended way through it is, but it locks up when you try to plant the potatoes. So I had to actually back out and exit the tutorial interface and just do what it wanted me to do on my own. Sometimes the UI stacks on itself several times in the tutorials as well, which is kind of annoying. The game could definitely use some polish in a few areas like that, but overall I still think it's a really fun game. It's good from the start, but it's the kind of game that will periodically just surprise you with a cool new feature or system unlock that you didn't even realize was there. And after several hours, you're just super invested and it's really great. I know this aesthetic isn't for everyone, but if you like the way it looks, or even don't mind the way it looks, I definitely think Ravendawn is an MMO worth a shot. It would not surprise me to have several people tell me in the comments they got hooked on this one. Moving on, we have Black Desert Online, and there is just so much dialogue. I have never seen an MMO with this much fucking dialogue. Sometime around the 90-minute mark, I actually started losing my mind a little bit. For the first few minutes, I sort of tried to quickly skim just to have a general idea of what was happening, and to be sure I caught it if they said anything important, but it didn't take long before I just spammed my R key through every single encounter, of which there are many. I'm pretty sure I pressed my R key more in this 2 hours than I have the entire rest of the time I've had this keyboard. Aside from the dialogue and cutscenes, what little of the gameplay I got to experience, it actually seems really dope. There are a bunch of different classes to choose from that all appear to offer pretty unique playstyles. The combat's really fun, especially for an MMO, and I'd imagine as you progress it gets pretty insane. There's a lot of weight in the combat system here. It feels really good. The world building seems solid, the game looks fantastic, it controls really well. There really wasn't much I didn't like about my time with the game. I've also heard a lot of great things about BDO over the years, so I was really looking forward to this, but holy cow, this early game is so full of dialogue. I feel like that's something seasoned players should be warning you about. I'm not even sure I'd have made it to any real gameplay if I was trying to read it all and not skipping the cutscenes. I personally don't generally care about the story in MMOs. I'm much more interested in just figuring out which of the professions I want to get involved with and start doing my thing. But if you're someone who likes lore and story, there's plenty of it here. I can definitely see the potential for this game to get crazy after a while, and I would be very interested to get beyond this tutorial phase and see what the game's economy is like, how deep the different professions go, and what the overall gameplay loop will be. I can only assume the dialogue slows down at some point, and I'm very curious to see what the rest of the game looks like. It seems like one of the more promising MMOs I've played, and I will more than likely hop back in when I'm done with this video and see what it really has to offer. And who knows, if it's interesting enough, maybe we'll make make some more content on it in the future. I think I'd recommend Black Desert Online to anyone already familiar with the MMO genre, as well as anyone who likes to read. This is actually fucking crazy, man. Jesus Christ. Let me play the game. God damn, man. Next is the Quinfall, and well, they can't all be winners, and actually the Quinfall can't be a winner the most. This one is not great. It's quite a coincidence that I played this right after Black Desert Online, because I would describe this game as Black Desert Online from Temu. This is very much, Mom, can we get Black Desert Online? We have Black Desert Online at home. They're very clearly going for something similar here, and they really just missed every single target, it feels like. I will say they do a better job of getting you to some gameplay quicker than BDO does, but that's about it. The character creation is oddly detailed. One example is that you could choose how vascular your character is, and we all know women love a vascular man, so we crank that motherfucker up to the max. I'm running around looking like I got hot dogs under my skin, dude. My blood is pumping. The game is clearly made by people whose first language is not English, which is fine. I would never make fun of anyone's ability to speak more languages than I do, but this quest message from Captain Thorn looking like a 1 a.m. you up text did make me giggle. This game is very optimistic. They are trying to do a lot, and the vision is certainly here. All of the systems are present. There are several different professions. You can purchase homes. There's farming and fishing and a lot of things to do. It's really in the execution, unfortunately, that it falls short. It's not like the worst MMO I've ever played, but everything about it is just so mediocre, I don't really know why you'd play this over something like Black Desert Online or Throne and Liberty, which we'll be talking about later in the video. What this game is offering already exists in much better forms several times over. Also, not a criticism of the game so much as just a personal gripe of mine, but don't fucking make me kill turtles, dude. I really don't like killing anything that isn't hostile, but there's something about having to kill a turtle specifically that really just kills my vibe. Oh, man, I really don't want to kill turtles. Oh, I hate that so bad. God, I hate that so fucking bad. Maybe it's because I lived in southern Georgia for a while in high school and saw a lot of turtles get hit by cars, which has really just stuck with me. Because like, hey, just don't do that, you fucking asshole. But I digress. The combat's pretty clunky. Actually, you know what? Never mind. I think I've made my point. Everything here is just very mediocre at best. Apply that to every system the game shows you in the first 2 hours, and that's basically my review. I don't recommend the Quinfall. Moving along, we have Once Human, and I actually put quite a few hours in this back when it first came out and remembered being really impressed by it then, but I'd still say I forgot just how good this game is. This is a really solid MMO that offers a style of gameplay that I think is kind of hard to find in the genre, and they do a lot of it really well. It plays like an open world survivor game in many ways, and at times will also feel kind of like a battle royale in the way the map feels and how looting and exploration in general feel. There is also, and forgive me for using the medical term here, but a fucking shit ton of content in this game. It will offer much of what you're familiar with if you frequent MMOs, but in ways that again feel much more similar to the typical open world survival game. There are of course hunger and thirst mechanics, as well as a sanity mechanic you'll need to be mindful of depending on what you're doing and where and for how long. There's base building, which honestly is pretty surprisingly good based on what I'd expect from an MMO. As you'd expect with the base building, there's plenty of gathering and crafting to do, and in some ways it'll be essential to your growth as you progress. The combat's great, the gunplay is extremely solid. Aside from the enemies in the world, there are a few different types of boss fights, all of which that I've experienced have been fantastic, and actually have a good variety of mechanics and things to make each one interesting. It's not just shoot the big thing till it dies every time. There are different phases for some of them, attack patterns to use, mechanics to use to your advantage. Like with this boss, if you pop one of these seeds at the right time, it creates a dome where you're safe from this insane beam attack that I kept dying to. Different bosses and enemy types will also have different weaknesses you can exploit as you collect more weapons and mods, as well as ammo types and throwables. Speaking of weapons, there are a lot of different classes of weapon for you to lean into, as well as plenty of skins and cosmetics for each, and you will really feel the difference from one type of gun to another. As I said, the gunplay will definitely exceed your expectations. You have these things called deviations, which are essentially pets that not only offer bonuses to you, but can be summoned to fight alongside you, and there are plenty to discover and try to catch. Aside from whichever one you decide to keep in your backpack to use, you'll find different ones to keep at your base that you can do a variety of different things to benefit you, like gather nearby resources, for example, and they all have different strengths and specialties and perks, so hunting for the right ones can get pretty interesting. You'll unlock your motorcycle after a few main quests, and the driving is also unexpectedly good. It's not anything to write home about, but as with most of the other systems in the game, if you sort of imagined what you think driving a motorcycle in an MMO would be like, this is probably better than what you'd be imagining. There's dynamic weather, and the world itself looks really good and has plenty to explore and engage with. You have a few different skill trees to work through, whether it be to unlock new things to build, or different passives to equip for whatever you're trying to accomplish. Partying up with randoms or friends is easy, and there's plenty to do around the map to keep you entertained, whether you're in a group or not. I remember the first time I played this, I came in with pretty low expectations, and it kind of blew me away, honestly. And this time was no different. You'll notice in the footage there are Christmas lights on the trees and decorations around the map as well, so the devs are pretty active and involved. There were also several different items I collected that were holiday themed. This game has a level of quality and polish that's pretty refreshing for the genre, and if you're someone who likes shooters or open world survival games and you're looking for a new MMO to check out, I can't imagine Once Human would leave you wanting for anything. I highly recommend it. Next, we have Final Fantasy XIV, and this was the game I was most excited to play for this video. I actually don't even really know why I've never played it. I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy in general, with 7 being in a tight race with Diablo 2 for my favorite game of all time. And I also have friends that have been playing Final Fantasy XIV for years. For whatever reason, I've just never loaded it up until now, and I have to say, I'm not sure I ever had an MMO make such a good impression on me in just 2 hours of gameplay. This game feels incredible to play in just about every way, and from pretty much every direction. I was thoroughly impressed. The story even has my attention, which is a rare accomplishment for an MMO, as we've mentioned. You'll start with a very solid character creator. I didn't spend a ton of time here, but I did quickly throw together what I thought was a pretty good generic-looking Final Fantasy protagonist. The movement here is a little bit different than what I'm used to, but it didn't take long to adjust, and when I did, I really liked it. This is where you first get a good feel for just how good it feels to play this game. Having A and D rotate the camera and Q and E being your strafe buttons is such a simple tweak, but it makes all the difference, and it frees up your mouse to do other things while you move. You can also hold left click to move the camera without changing which direction your character is moving, or hold right click to control them in a more traditional way. Everything in the UI can be moved around, including dialogue boxes, and it's all just very easy to do. I also get the sense this game would play very well on controller if you're not a mouse and keyboard fan. You can tell this game's been around for a while and has gotten a lot of attention because the quality of life that I experienced in just my 2 hours really puts most other MMOs I've played to shame. The questing system is solid and it's easy to differentiate between main quest and side quest, as well as all the different types of side quests. I obviously didn't unlock much in my time playing, but I saw some pretty cool looking characters and a few of them had different pets. I saw a beagle, a fat cat, and a shark. I assume there are plenty more, and I'd imagine by now there are tons of cosmetics and things for your character as you grow. The world building here is really solid, and I really appreciated the details they included occasionally. At one point when the game was teaching me about fast travel, they explained to me that it would cost a little gil, which is not incredibly uncommon in MMOs, but they bothered to mention that the fee is so they can maintain the crystals and keep them operational. And that's such a small, honestly unnecessary detail, but I really like that they put it in. Sometimes little things like that can really make a world of difference. The game simultaneously feels familiar as a Final Fantasy fan, with the music really hitting the nostalgia center and seeing chocobos and other familiar elements like that, while also managing to feel like a brand new game in a place I've never been, which was fun. The combat was pretty fun and engaging, and I'm very curious to see what it looks like later in the game when my character is further developed. I haven't had a game exceed my expectations like this in a while, and I came in already expecting it to be pretty good. When I consider what I'm looking for and how I like an MMO to feel, this is about as close to perfect as I've ever seen, so I will absolutely keep playing this one for a while. It's worth mentioning there's a monthly subscription to play the game, but there's also a free trial that you can get a ton of mileage out of, apparently. If you like MMOs and haven't played this yet, especially if you're a Final Fantasy fan, I think Final Fantasy XIV is a must play. Highly recommend everyone give it a try. Moving on, we have Stalcraft X, and this is another game that really impressed me. I've had my eye on it for over a year now, it seems, and never felt like I had the time to jump in, and now that I have, it did not disappoint. It's like a Tarkov-inspired MMO with a bit of a Minecraft-ish aesthetic, and it all really works nicely. I'll say right out of the gate, this game is far more polished than I think I expected it to be. It honestly plays more like a single-player game. It's so fluid and smooth, the movement feels great, the gunplay is superb, and there's just plenty going on here. The cutscenes and voice acting are all even really good. It's just great from what I've experienced so far. There's a very deep gun modding and customization system, and I'd assume over time you'd get a variety of cosmetics for your guns and character. The quests were interesting and engaging, and it's not always just go here and shoot stuff. Sometimes it's fetch quests, sometimes it's combat, sometimes it's getting info through dialogue options, and so on. I also can't stress enough just how good the gunplay is here. It was very clearly a priority to make sure it felt good, and it really does. The world map is huge, and there are plenty of events and points of interest to get distracted by as you play. It's almost like Fallout vibes in the sense that it's just so easy to get sidetracked wanting to explore something you see and ending up in a whole new quest line. I really didn't expect there to be this much PvE content and such a deep questing and side questing system. I bet this would be a blast to play with a friend or two, but honestly I had a blast playing by myself, so that probably just means the game is fun. I'm very interested in seeing what more it has to offer and what combat looks like further in, as well as what types of raids and different events there are to get into. The tutorial is excellent. You launch the game and it just begins immediately. It does a great job of getting you familiar with all the mechanics and stuff, as well as sort of introducing itself for the hardcore game it is. I died a couple of times in the tutorial thinking that there wouldn't really be much danger, but that quickly proved itself to be incorrect. After the tutorial, you pick which faction you want to be a part of. Stalkers are more PvE oriented, while bandits are more PvP oriented, with their main goal seeming to be to kill stalkers. I saw several players in my time playing, but never ended up in combat with any of them. I actually helped a couple and had a couple help me, so it doesn't seem like you're just going to get killed every time you encounter another player or anything like that. Perhaps later later in the game, things get a little more intense. If there are any Stalcraft players watching that want to let us know in the comments, that would be cool. All in all, I was truly shocked at the quality I felt in this game and just how fun it ended up being. This is absolutely going on my list of games to continue playing, and if you're interested in a high-quality first-person shooter MMO with some top-notch gunplay and tons of content, I don't reckon I've seen it done better than Stalcraft X. Up next is Elder Scrolls Online, and this is such a good game. We are really on a streak right now of killer MMOs. I've lightly dabbled in this one in the past as well. One of these days I really want to dedicate a significant chunk of time to it. What's crazy about this game is I played it the day it came out back in 2014 on my Xbox One. I remember I had just moved to New York City and lived across from a GameStop. I was so excited about this because I was such a fan of Skyrim, and I remember hating this game when I played it then. It was so ugly, it played horribly, there just wasn't anything I liked about it, and it was so disappointing. Then a few years later I hopped back in randomly and it was a completely different game than I remembered it being, and it was just incredible and just keeps getting better. If you're a fan of Skyrim or Oblivion and you haven't played Elder Scrolls Online, you really should. You'll be shocked at how much it feels like those games. It literally just feels like the Skyrim MMO. It looks amazing, it's among the better looking MMOs I've ever played, and it just feels incredible to play. There are plenty of ways to go in the character creation, plenty of different play styles to lean into, and tons of cosmetics and pets and all the things you'd expect to see in an MMO with such a well-known franchise. I'd even go as far as to say it feels better to play than Skyrim. Everything here just feels so sharp. The textures are quite a bit more polished, and it maintains all the little intricacies and details from the other games. You'll notice as you run through areas that each random little item can be picked up, most of the time totally unnecessary. The world design is really nice and there will be no shortage of other players. The combat feels great and responsive, and you will be very active during fights. Some MMOs will have you just sort of stand in place and not require much of you, and that's not at all the case here. There will be attacks to dodge and necessary movement and all of that. Again, it will feel very familiar if you've been a fan of Elder Scrolls games in the past. This will be another game with a crazy amount of content, which is probably not a surprise. There will be a lot to learn here, but it seems to roll everything out at a pretty nice pace so far, so it hasn't felt too overwhelming. I desperately want to push later into the game and get a better look at the big picture here. I bet it's so fun to group up and do big raids and events and other things like that. There really isn't a ton more to say here. If you're a fan of MMOs and haven't played Elder Scrolls Online, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. It's honestly one of the best looking and best overall MMOs on the market right now. Moving on, we have Star Wars: The Old Republic, and it's going to be important as you listen to this review to remember that I am not a fan of Star Wars. Like, I respect it for what it is, but I've just never been able to get into it. So imagine my surprise when the Star Wars MMO showed me, by far, the most engaging story I've ever seen in an MMO. It's hard enough to even get me to pay attention to the story in an MMO, let alone care, but I'm actually compelled to keep playing this game to see how this story continues. The voice acting is also really good. This has all of the familiar MMO stuff, but it's another one that feels very much like a single player experience as far as the quality of the game and the story and everything. It plays a lot like Final Fantasy XIV in many ways, at least at this stage, and it also has a monthly subscription for anyone interested. It is not mandatory to play the game, but you honestly get a ton of extra content and bonuses for the price. Another thing that's really cool here that I don't feel like I've seen much of before is that your choices seem to matter. I decided to go with the dark side when I made my character, as I thought it might be a nice change of pace from what I usually do, and the dark side has always just seemed more interesting to me anytime I have paid any attention to Star Wars. Throughout the story, I was given the opportunity several times through dialogue to kill characters that seemed like they were, at the very least, mildly important to what was going on. Your dialogue choices also have an impact on how aligned you are with either side, and it's just really fucking cool, man. I can't believe how much I cared about everything that was going on here. The combat's been really fun, the world looks amazing and has been really good to explore. As I mentioned, the story is shockingly good for a number of reasons. There were mentions during my time playing of several other systems that I hadn't made it to yet. One of them I'm very interested in is companions. Apparently you can have a companion follow you around, and there are even friendship and romance mechanics. I was also told I'd be getting my own ship at some point, which is pretty exciting and makes me think there must be a whole different level to exploration and perhaps even ship combat. I think this is another no-brainer, honestly, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. This game seems ridiculously good, and I do want to make it clear, I have actively not liked Star Wars for a long time. It's not just that I've never bothered checking it out. I've tried and I don't like it. And I still think this is one of the best MMOs in this video, and it has by far the best story so far in my opinion. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually going to struggle between whether or not to keep playing this or Final Fantasy XIV. If you've never played Star Wars: The Old Republic, you should absolutely give it a try, no matter how you feel about Star Wars. Next is Lost Ark, another one I've known about forever and have never gotten around to, despite how good I've always thought it looked. And I have to say, it did not disappoint. I think this one seems like a really solid game and has some of the more fun combat of any MMOs I've played. I also think this is a great game for anyone that's new to MMOs. It's very easy to get the hang of, but there's still plenty to grow into and learn over time. It's also one of very few MMOs of this style that has a class that uses guns. I think that alone will probably attract a lot of people, and I decided to try it out as well simply because of how infrequently I've seen that in games like this. After choosing your main class, you pick another subclass of sorts that will further dictate your playstyle. So I went with a gunslinger, and then I went with a machinist, which specializes specializes in SMGs and drones, and it was so much fun. The combat here is very solid, and I'm making a bit of an assumption here, but I get the impression based on my experience with the machinist that you will really significantly feel the difference from one class and specialization to another in how they play. I had a really good time learning this character and finding a good rotation with my skills and stuff. They were all really cool, and I found myself very interested in progressing and unlocking more. The skill tree is also dope. As you level up skills, you get to assign passives to each skill that make them stronger, whether that be through reduced cooldowns, more damage, extra buffs, etc. There's also a recommended skills button if you feel like you want some guidance on how to level up your skills, and this goes back to what I was saying about the game feeling approachable for new players. If you already know what you're doing, you can ignore all of that, but they have a few of these systems in place to attempt to keep newer players from feeling too overwhelmed, and I think they struck a great balance. The world itself looks pretty good. The world building is fantastic so far. The graphics themselves are good enough. All of the familiar systems are here, with you unlocking your first mount pretty early on, activating fast travel points as you progress, and seeing glimpses of things like pets and card collecting and different skills to engage with. There seems to be plenty of content here to satisfy players of all kinds. This is definitely among my favorites from the whole video, and it happens to be free, so I think it's perfect for anyone that's looking to get started in MMOs, as well as any fairly seasoned players who haven't tried it yet. Lost Ark really impressed me, and I will certainly continue to play it for a bit and see if it hooks me long term. Moving along, we have Myth of Empires, and this one was an interesting experience. I had never heard of it, but came across it looking for games for the video, and thought it looked pretty interesting. You know how sometimes you can immediately feel like a lack of polish, I guess you'd call it, as soon as you load up a game? Like even in the main menu, you can just sort of feel it. That's present in this game, so I was very quickly just like, oh no, what have I done? It's also a little bit difficult to navigate your way into an actual game. I think this could be streamlined a bit more and made a bit more clear, but we eventually got it. This game doesn't feel like an MMO at all in the early stages. It plays like a fairly mediocre open world survival game. It has a great tutorial and line of quests that go on for a long time that are designed to have you progress through the tech tree and get familiar with different parts of the game, and as you work your way through them, they start holding your hand less and less. It's really not bad, and after you get used to the way it plays, the game's pretty fun. You will be doing a lot of gathering and hunting, as ropes and branches go quick and you don't get a ton at a time. There seems to be an insane amount of stuff going on here. As you look through the tech tree and different tabs in the menu, there are all these different specializations and abilities and things to work into, that I'd imagine even the mid-game here feels like a completely different game. There are wild horses you can apparently tame. I saw a couple of mentions of warriors, which seem to be like villagers you can assign to do different tasks in your base to streamline some of the crafting and production chains. It started out kind of rough, but after about 15 or 20 minutes, this one really started growing on me. I am curious about what things look like later in the game, but not so much that I'm likely to play again, at least not for now. The backlog is just stuffed full of things I'm more interested in playing at the moment, so I might have to settle for looking up some stuff on YouTube to see what the game looks like later on. Myth of Empire surprised me a bit for sure though. I happened to catch this one on sale, which is what I'd recommend you do if this looks like something you want to check out. Next is Old School Runescape, and this is one you've certainly heard of at this point. It's a staple in the industry, and regardless of how you feel about it, is one of the goats for sure. If you've played it, you already know what's up, and if you haven't played it, it's probably because of the way it looks. But I assure you, if you'll just sidestep the skepticism for a few moments and give this game a try, it will do something for you. I have not personally put a ton of time into this game, but every time I've dabbled, I get aggressively hooked on it for a few days, and usually have to force myself to stop playing it so I can get back to being somewhat productive. I have several friends who've been playing this game for most of their life, and you probably know someone who has as well. You'll load into Tutorial Island and make your way through perhaps one of the best tutorials I've ever seen in an MMO. I think it does such a good job of just sort of scratching the surface on all the very basic things you need to know to get started, and then once you leave Tutorial Island and talk to Adventurer John, you begin on your adventure paths and other quests. One of the things that makes the early game guidance so cool here is that there are multiple ways to go with it. John will suggest adventurer paths, which basically give you one task at a time to go complete and then come back and check in with him to get some rewards. They're very simple things like leveling up a specific skill to level 5, and then switching to an adjacent skill and getting it to level 5, and then ranged, and then magic, and so on. If you need a break from that, or would rather get to some exploring sooner, you can select some quests from the starter section that are sort of tailor-made for where you're at right now. And the quests are actually really fun. Some MMOs can fall into the trap of every quest just being kill this amount of this thing, or go here and talk to this person, and then come back here and talk to me, but here the quests get pretty interesting and interactive. The first quest most people do is the cook's assistant, where you'll just go and gather some resources for him. You'll not only have to go get the items he needs, but stop on the way to get other items you'll need to get those items, as well as go through a bit of the production on one of the other ingredients. So the game is still sort of teaching you how things work and where in the world to go do these things when you want to do them. Then there's a quest like Ernest the Chicken, which was the second one I decided to do, and it's very interactive with puzzles to solve and exploring to do. It's all just very well done. There are tons of different skills for you to level, a ridiculous amount of quests and content and world to explore, and if you're someone who loves a good grind, that's really what this one's all about. It's a game you can play as actively or as passively as you like as well. Many people sort of treat it like an idle game even. I also personally do like the way this game looks. It will grow on you very quickly once you're playing it. I almost didn't include this one in the video just because it's such a juggernaut of the genre, but I also think it's a special case in that there are probably a ton of people who know about it but have never tried it, so I decided to include it in the hopes that maybe I'd sway a handful of people. I definitely think Old School RuneScape is a game everyone should at least try, and if you do, make sure you do it through Rune Lite, as it offers tons of killer plugins that you can literally just toggle on or off that offer you a ton of quality of life, as well as things just like making the game look a little better visually. Next is Guild Wars 2, and this feels very much like the quintessential MMO experience, and I mean that in exclusively positive ways. I certainly can't speak for everyone, but when I just imagine an MMO, it's pretty much this game. It looks like I think it should look, it plays like I think it should play, it consists of the kinds of things I think it should consist of. It just very much feels like the foundational MMO. And you may want to ask, Gigs, I haven't played Guild Wars 1. Will I know what's going on in Guild Wars 2? And to that, I'm gonna say shut up. Shut up, that's not funny. That's not funny. Hey, that's not fun. It feels really nice to play, it's got a really cool style to it. There are several different classes that offer wide varieties of ways to play. There are mounts and pets and just a ridiculous amount of content. If you asked 100 people what they thought the best MMO was from an objective standpoint, you'd hear Guild Wars 2 quite a bit. If I have one thing in my 2 hours to critique, I'd say at times it was a little harder to figure out what I was supposed to be doing than it has been in other games in this video. At a certain point very early on, the main quest just sort of stops happening for a minute, so I was progressing a different set of quests and sometimes they just seemed a little vague, but I ultimately figured it out. And it was never annoying enough to make me want to stop playing or anything. I unlocked a temporary mount, this raptor, that I get to keep for 10 hours of gameplay, which is pretty dope. I'd be interested in seeing how you actually acquire a permanent mount and what types of mounts there are and all that. The combat feels really solid and was fun. The quest had a decent enough variety to keep me busy without feeling like I was doing tedious tasks. The progression felt good and I regularly got new gear to upgrade into from quest rewards. All in all, it just feels like a very well thought out game with a lot of polish that offers all the things anyone would be looking for in an MMO. So if you haven't tried Guild Wars 2 yet, it's probably worth hopping on for a couple hours and seeing what it does for you. You may just find your new main game for a while with this one. Next is Throne and Liberty, and this is, in my opinion, the best looking MMO on the market. It's actually wild how pretty this game is and how solid it is from a graphical standpoint. You could put these cutscenes next to just about any AAA game and they'd hold up, and even outside of the cutscenes, the world and characters all just look incredible. It also has one of the more robust character creators you'll find in an MMO. There are also a lot of voice acted characters and the story is actually really good here. If you're someone who's wanting to dig into the story in your MMO, I think this will do it for you. It's also just a really fun game and they have a lot of cool things going on here. I actually put about 13 hours into this when it first came out, at least worldwide. It had been out in Korea for a while already. The combat is great, among the best of the games in the video, and the system for building your character, or maybe I should say deciding your class and playstyle, is pretty neat. You basically have a main weapon and a secondary weapon, and the way your character plays and what they'll be capable of depends very heavily on this choice. You'll start out with the most basic version of every weapon, so you're free to experiment and find a style that you would like without having to worry too much about wasting time or resources or anything like that. You'll notice a pretty significant difference from weapon to weapon in the way your character plays too, so you should be able to find something to settle into that works for you. Throne and Liberty has one of the more fun and concise tutorials I think I've seen in an MMO, ending with a pretty awesome boss fight. Once you're out of the tutorial, it will start to ease you in with a lot of familiar early game MMO type quests and teach you about navigating the map and crafting and all the things you'll need to know. Their approach to mounts is pretty cool here in the sense that you just morph into all your mounts. You have a land, air, and water morph, and you can transition in and out of all of them seamlessly, and all of which have a huge variety of skins to unlock and or purchase, and they look awesome. I can't overstate just how gorgeous this world is. It's one of very few games where I will actually skip fast traveling sometimes just so I can run through it and enjoy the scenery. This world just feels so good to exist in. This game does feel like it gets a bit more complicated quite a bit faster than other MMOs. Learning the ins and outs of the weapon system, knowing which skills to invest in or even use, the different currencies and crafting mechanics, it can all start to feel a little overwhelming, so this is one you'll probably be looking up some guides on, but it's thankfully fun enough to justify the extra effort required in learning everything in my opinion. I think Throne and Liberty is the best looking MMO by far and one of the more fun ones I've ever played, so I'd absolutely recommend it. And next we have Fallout 76, and if you've watched enough of my videos, you've probably heard me mention what a big fan of Fallout I am, particularly New Vegas, so you can imagine how excited I was when this game came out. It did not have a great launch for several reasons, and as a result, I did not play it very long. Since then, they've been pretty aggressively working on the game, and I have dabbled here and there over the years. It's really come a long way since the beginning, and now I'd say it's a really solid game. It will be a very familiar experience if you're a fan of Fallout, and in many ways just feels like another game in the series. All of the familiar systems are here, you have a big open world to explore with tons of side quests and random POIs to keep you plenty distracted on your way to your main quest marker. Like I said, it's just Fallout, except you can play with your friends or randoms and see other people doing their thing in the world. There are times you'll sort of forget you're playing an MMO and then another player will run across your screen and you'll be like, oh yeah. There is base building and world events. You can engage in PvP or team up with groups to do raid style content. There's plenty here, but I can't help feeling like they really missed a lot lot of opportunities with this game. I would have loved to see some more of the traditional MMO tropes here, in addition to how well they've maintained the integrity of the Fallout experience at this point. As far as I know, there are no pets aside from the ones that stay in your camp. I don't believe there are any mounts of any kind. I don't think there are companions, at least not in the way we're all familiar with the companions in Fallout. I think a purely player-driven economy, something more along the lines of Albion Online, would have been incredible here and given people a lot more room to play in different ways. I think not having the Mojave as a location to travel to at some point, or even as an expansion, is a huge missed opportunity. Not only would it aggressively hit the nostalgia for so many players, but having the new Vegas Strip as your functioning casino would have been really cool. The Atlantic City update looks fine and all, but I'm definitely biased as a New Vegas fan. To be clear, I still think the game is really good. It's a great Fallout game. I do still really like it a lot. If you're a Fallout fan and you've let the negative press keep you away from this one, or perhaps you played it early on and never revisited because of how bad the launch was, I think Fallout 76 is more than worth a play now. And that's going to do it for this video. I hope you found a couple of new MMOs to check out, or maybe got the nudge you needed to try one you've had your eye on for a while. Let me know if you decided to try any of these, and I will definitely do another video on MMOs in the future, so leave me some suggestions of games you'd like to see in the next one. If you haven't and you feel so compelled, hit the like button, as that can help get the video out to more people, and the algorithm thinks you'll really enjoy the video on the screen right now, so see if it's right. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you next time.